All right. Good morning, everybody. Um, my name is Dan Cuddy, and I am the supervisor of the Municipal Stormwater Permitting Unit for NJDEP. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first Stormwater Program Coordinator training for the Highway Agency General Permit. As you know, the permit was renewed back in January of this year. So as part of that renewal, we instituted this training program for all the stormwater program coordinators to go over all the requirements of the permit and what your responsibilities are with that. Just a few technical things. So we asked that everyone keep their microphone muted throughout the presentation. If you have questions, you can feel free to enter those into the chat. In Teams, there's like a little, you'll see at the top of the chat, a little word bubble. You can just click on that, ask your question in there. And then we'll have people on our end there to answer all your questions. If you prefer to answer your question out loud, there are sections of the presentation where we have a question break. Feel free to unmute yourself. We have a relatively small group, so we might be okay with just going ahead and asking your questions. But if it gets too unruly, we'll just ask that you use the raise your hand function in Teams, and then we'll call on you to ask your questions. But with that being said, we have a pretty informative presentation for you all. I hope you get a lot out of it. And I will now turn it over to Hannah to begin the presentation. So thank you again.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Stormwater Program Coordinator Training. My name is Miranda Muniz, and I'm a case manager for Burlington and Middlesex County. I'll start things off today and then hand over the presentation to some other members of the Municipal Stormwater Permitting Unit to continue. We created this training because we have received requests for it from SPCs over the years, particularly from those who are new to the role and want to make sure they're understanding the permit requirements correctly. This training is a way to ensure that all SPCs hear the same information and have an opportunity to discuss questions and concerns. It is mandatory for all SPCs to attend once per permit cycle, so if you retire or change jobs, your successor will need to attend the next available session. We are recording today's session and we'll post the recording and the slides on our MS4 webpage. It will be there for you to review and to share with others in your stormwater program. And if you do leave your position, your successor can watch the recording to hold them over until the next live session. As Dan said before, if you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat. If we don't answer them in the chat, we can discuss them during the breaks we will have throughout the presentation. Since this training is mandatory, we will be monitoring attendance to make sure the SPC for every highway agency has been trained. If you are calling in today's session, please use the chat function to list your name and affiliation so we know that you attended. Additionally, there will be a survey sent out after this session that will be mandatory for all attendees to complete before they will receive their certificate of course completion. Our goal today is to explain the role of the Stormwater Program Coordinator and to describe what is expected for compliance with all permit conditions. After this, we'll give you some helpful tips about the mapping assistance we provide and the NJDEP online portal. With any time remaining at the end, we will open it up for a Q&A session. We'll start with the responsibilities of the Stormwater Program Coordinator and show you some of the department's resources on our website. SPCs serve as the main point of contact in your highway agency for all things stormwater. In most cases, this job goes to the maintenance supervisor or your engineer. Some are hired through private consulting firms and may work for multiple permittees. Please make sure to let your MS4 case manager know who the SPC for your highway agency is. We send all key stormwater correspondence to the SPC, so it is important we have the correct information. We'll go into more detail about each of these bullet points as we go through the presentation, but in a nutshell, this is what the SPC job entails. As the SPC, you will receive correspondence from the department regarding permit compliance issues. You may not be the one to personally do all of the stormwater work, but you are responsible for making sure things get done in a way that complies with your permit. You are responsible for making sure your highway agency is complying with their MS4 permit. You may not be the one to personally do all of the stormwater work, but you are responsible for making sure that things get done in a way that complies with your permit. You will need to prepare a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SP3, which is the document that details each permit requirement and explains your stormwater program. If you haven't already, you'll submit your most updated SP3 to the department, post it on your webpage, review it each year, and use it during annual employee training. Since the highway agency permit was recently renewed, we have new SP3 templates for you to use. We'll talk about the new SP3 templates a little later. You are responsible for making sure that all required submissions are made to the department and the county, if necessary, on time. You'll make sure the appropriate information is posted on a dedicated stormwater webpage on your website. You need to make sure that all public notices and outreach opportunities are communicated properly to residents and businesses in your town. You'll also need to make sure that everyone who has a role in the stormwater program gets the right training. You must submit the annual report and the documents that get attached to it as early as January 1st, but no later than May 1st every year. And lastly, you need to keep accurate and complete records of stormwater activities. Before we get into the permit conditions, I want to show you the department's MS4 webpage, where you can find details about everything we're going to talk about today. There are links to the permits, compliance schedules, guidance on the permit conditions, fillable templates and forms, sample materials, NJDEP online, a list of MS4 case managers by county, and other related resources. When we make any significant updates or create new materials, we will send a notice via email to the SPC and we'll post it on this webpage. Let's go through each of the permit conditions now. Let's talk first about creating and maintaining a stormwater pollution prevention plan, also known as the SPPP or SP3. This document could be considered your stormwater manual, a how-to for staff to know what they need to do, how to do it, and when to do it. All the conditions of the MS4 permit need to be concluded in your SP3, where you will describe the unique details of how your highway agency is meeting the conditions. It should be thorough enough for someone to pick it up and have a pretty good idea of how to carry out operations. Highway agency permittees should already have experience in creating an SP3. When you fill it out, please don't leave anything blank. For the areas that are not yet due, please just give a high-level description of the steps you'll take to satisfy the permit condition. Then, once you start doing the activity, you can update that section with a more concrete description of the program you have developed. You'll be reviewing it annually, so just add it then and send a fresh copy to us whenever you make updates. The department has a template to work from, which you are not required to use, but it will guarantee that you cover every permit condition. It's available as a fillable PDF on the MS4 webpage. There is also a new template that follows the 2025 Highway Agency permit. So please ensure that you're using the right template. As mentioned, once it's complete, the SP3 needs to be posted on your webpage, discussed during annual training of staff, and submitted to the department via NJDEP online through the Stormwater Document Submittal Service, which we will discuss later on in the presentation. The biggest tip we have is to take advantage of the template and sample SP3s on our MS4 webpage. We provide fill-in-the-blank style templates as well as a sample if you want to get an idea of how to fill it out. The links here on the slides will take you to your appropriate SP3 template and sample. Roughly about every 5 years, we renew the MS4 permits, so we'll update our templates and samples whenever that happens. You are not required to use a department template, but it's probably the easiest approach. If you make your own SP3, that's fine. Just please make sure you cover all of the same topics with the same level of detail. All right, public involvement and participation, including public notice. Public outreach is something all highway agencies have been required to do from the beginning of the MS4 program. It's simple. To comply with state and local laws regarding public notice, there are certain permit-related actions that must be announced in a way that lets your community know when important stormwater decisions are being made. Public notices are typically done by posts in newspapers, social media, and permittee websites. You may also choose to send a direct email to distribute information. Dedicated stormwater webpage. Stormwater materials must be posted on a dedicated stormwater webpage on a website where the public can find all stormwater materials in one place. Some highway agencies may not have their own website. If that's the case, they can reach out to their case manager and request approval to post their stormwater-related documents on a county, state, or federal agency website, depending on if the highway agency is county, state, or federally owned. Not all of these need to be uploaded right away if they have a delayed due date. For example, infrastructure maps don't need to be submitted and posted until 2028. We have a free, easy-to-use template and have staff in-house to provide one-on-one assistance should you need it. Some of you already use our webpage template, so you will just need to update it with the required materials. A link to the example webpage is posted here on the slide and can also be found on our webpage. Local public education and outreach. The SPC will arrange for a variety of education and outreach to the public. This is required for all permittees, not just those that operate rest areas. For highway agency permittees, we are using a 7-point system where you select at least 3 activities from the categories we describe in the permit attachment. One activity must educate on the hazards of illicit connections and improper disposal of waste. Alternative activities can also count for this requirement as long as department approval is received prior to conducting the activity. Keep records of your activities and report them in your annual report. If you need ideas or materials, we have some available on the MS4 webpage that you can use. Here are some highlights of Attachment A, the point system for public education and outreach activities. Here are some of the examples of activities we offer for points. Designated pet relief areas, promotional item giveaway, regulatory mechanism signage, regulatory mechanism education, storm drain labeling campaign, litter cleanup campaign, report excess road salt pile program, and road salt education campaign. You can find a description of each activity as well as their associated point values in Attachment A in the permit. Construction site stormwater runoff. The SPC must ensure that all construction projects that will disturb 1 acre or more, or are part of a common plan of development that disturbs 1 acre or more, obtain a 5G3 or an individual industrial stormwater permit before starting construction. Please note that the 5G3 permit was renewed in 2022 with minor changes. It applies to the projects undertaken by the permittee, as well as private companies and individuals. Post-construction stormwater management in new development and redevelopment. This condition highlights the requirements related to stormwater management designs for major development projects. If you are the SPC but not the engineer, You won't need to know the technical details, but you do need to be familiar with the process. Engineers who review and approve major development projects must be different from those who design the projects. They can work at the same firm if that's something you outsource, but the person who designs the stormwater management project must be someone different than the person who reviews the design. Review engineers must complete the department's Stormwater Management Design and Review, or SWMDR course, every 5 years to stay certified. They also need to attend a training on rule amendments if the department determines that training is warranted. We'll talk more about this when we get to the training section. You can check our webpage for the list of department certified engineers to confirm the status of the engineer for your facility. The reviewer must ensure that the projects are designed in accordance with NJAC 7:8, the BMP manual, and constructed according to the approved plans. Mitigation plans. If your facility wants the ability to grant variances from the design and performance standards for stormwater management measures, there needs to be a written mitigation plan that satisfies the criteria in the stormwater management rules at NJAC 7:8-5.3 through 5.6 are met and identifies the measures necessary to offset the deficit created by granting the variance. Each time your agency grants a variance, you need to send a report describing the variance to the department via NJDEP online within 30 days of the approval. Regulatory mechanisms. Regulatory mechanisms are aimed at minimizing stormwater pollution and flooding throughout the highway agency properties, not just at major development sites. The purpose of community-wide regulatory mechanisms is to have methods in place to keep pollutants out of stormwater so it doesn't make its way to streams, lakes, and other water bodies where it can contribute to harmful algal blooms or HABs, cause beach closings, and a host of other negative impacts. They help to keep the community clean by setting a standard for the public and ensure you have a way to punish those who violate these regulatory mechanisms. Let's go through each regulatory mechanism briefly. Pet waste. The intent is to get people to clean up after their pets so their waste stays out of the stormwater system and ultimately out of the watershed. And highway agencies can also use this mechanism to completely prohibit pets from being allowed on highway agency property. Wildlife feeding. The intent is to stop people from feeding wildlife, like ducks and geese, for example, to discourage them from gathering where they can leave droppings on public property that also pollute the watershed. Litter control. The intent is to keep trash, including solids, floatables, and residual pollutants from contaminating stormwater and causing flooding due to debris clogging the MS4. You can either enforce your own regulatory mechanism here or enforce the state litter statute to meet this requirement. Improper disposal of waste. The intent is to stop people from purposefully dumping waste into the storm system. For example, dumping grease, paint, motor oil, or other hazardous waste. All right, we're going to pick it back up with the next slide. Illicit connections. This is in the good housekeeping and infrastructure requirements of the permit. The highway agency permit addresses illicit connections through good housekeeping measures. Illicit connection means any physical or non-physical connection that discharges the following to a municipal separate storm sewer system, unless that discharge is authorized under a different NJIPD's permit. Domestic sewage, non-contact cooling water, processed wastewater, or other industrial waste other than stormwater, or any category of non-stormwater discharges that a permittee for the MS4 identifies as a source or significant contributor of pollutants. Illicit connections often show as illicit discharges at your outfall. Litter pickup program. All permittees must develop a litter pickup program that includes roadside cleanup of trash and debris and regular collection of refuse from litter and recycling receptacles. including those located at rest areas. You must maintain records of roadside cleanups and estimates of the total amount of trash and debris collected. Sweeping streets provides more than just aesthetic benefits. It keeps dirt, debris, and litter out of the stormwater system where it would otherwise pollute the watershed. It helps alleviate flooding from clogged storm drains and can help to reduce the frequency of catch basin cleanings. This requirement was not changed from the last permit. You are only responsible for sweeping your roadways that you own and operate. While these are the minimum requirements, the permittee must sweep more frequently as necessary to eliminate reoccurring problems. First, we have quarterly street sweeping. The permittee shall sweep at a minimum of once every 3 months all segments of limited access highways, including ramps and parking areas, that have storm drain inlets or discharge directly to surface water. Triannual street sweepings, the permittee shall sweep at a minimum of once every 4 months all segments of streets, ramps, and parking areas that have storm drain inlets or discharge directly to surface water, but are not limited access highways. Annual street sweeping. The permittee shall sweep at a minimum of once per year all segments of streets, ramps, and parking areas that do not have storm drain inlets or discharge directly to surface water. On the left, we have a photo of a rest area parking lot with inlets that discharge directly to surface water, which needs to be swept 3 times a year under the highway agency permit. On the right, we have a photo of a limited access highway, which needs to be swept 4 times a year under the HA permit. Streets, ramps, and parking areas that are owned or operated by the permittee but do not have storm drain inlets or discharge directly to surface water only need to be swept annually. Let's talk about the difference between storm drain inlets and catch basins. The storm drain inlet is the top grade that you can walk or drive over, and if it's along a curb, it includes that curbside opening. We consider the inlet to be the parts that you can see on the surface. The catch basin is below the surface, typically straight below the inlet, but sometimes further down the pipe. Here are 2 photos to show the difference between storm drain inlets and catch basins. The picture on the left shows an inlet that needs cleaning, labeling, and retrofitting as it is missing the bar along the curb opening. On the right, the inlet grate has been removed, allowing you to see the catch basin. This one has some leaves and trash in there that should be cleaned out. Okay, so that's what we mean when we refer to storm drain inlets and catch basins. There are a few things to keep in mind when it comes to storm drain inlets. First, they need to have appropriate labels to indicate that they drain to waterways. Newer inlets have permanent wording cast into the structure itself, like the photo on the bottom shows. If it's an older model inlet that doesn't have this, you can attach a button to it like the one above that says no dumping. Otherwise, you can paint a message with a stencil or get creative with an artistic design to convey the message. All permittee-owned storm drain inlets must be retrofitted by the end of the permit cycle, which is by the end of the 2029 Highway Agency permit. You do not need to replace the inlets. Just add a bolt-on plate across the curb opening of the old style structures like you see in the top right picture. If you are installing a new storm drain, you're required to use a new style inlet structure that complies with the NJDOT design for bicycle safety. New storm drain installations must have a corresponding catch basin or other BMP designed for solids collection. It can be directly below the inlet or downstream of the new storm drain inlet prior to discharge to surface water. Exemptions for this condition include storm drains built on bridges or culverts, or when additional hydraulic losses will result in unavoidable adverse hydraulic impacts. So that's everything you need to know about the structure. Let's talk about inspections and maintenance. For storm drain inlets, These inspections can be done by driving to each inlet and just hopping out of the truck. If trash, leaves, branches, or other debris need to be removed, or you see signs of damage. For this reason, we require that all permittees inspect all storm drain inlets every year. Catch basins involve a bit more work. The inspector needs to get out of the truck, look down inside with a flashlight, or maybe lift the inlet grate to see if the catch basin needs cleaning. If the highway agency operates or maintains more than 2,500 catch basins, the requirement is to inspect a minimum of 20% of the total every year on rotation, so that all catch basins are inspected by the end of the permit cycle. If the highway agency operates or maintains less than 2,500 catch basins, they must all be inspected manually. When it comes to catch basin cleaning, please check the manufacturer's recommendations. The EPA also has a guidance document where they advise removal of materials when the sump pit becomes 40% full. Now let's talk about outfalls. For highway agencies, the requirement is to inspect a minimum of 20% of the total every year on rotation, so that all outfalls are inspected by the end of the permit cycle. The department offers outfall inspection forms on the MS4 webpage to document your findings. These inspections must include checking the overall structural integrity of the outfall, clogging, and instances of stream scouring and illicit discharges. The next 2 slides will focus on scouring and illicit discharges. Scouring can present as gouging out of the stream bank, undermining the outfall structure. Scouring erodes soils, clogs stream beds, and ruins habitats. When performing inspections, note if the soil is eroding away around the outfall and if stabilization is necessary. And just so it's understood, scouring inspections are required for all outfalls, not just that discharge to streams. All reports of stream scouring must be inspected within 30 days, and confirmed cases need to be remediated within 12 months of discovery, unless the department approves an alternative timeline. The department has a form available on our webpage to document stream scouring cases. When you're inspecting outfalls illicit discharges, look for instances of dry weather flow, which means a flow coming from the outfall 72 hours after a rain event. Other indicators include foam, turbidity, colored or overly fragrant discharges, and the presence of sanitary waste items. All reports of illicit discharges must be inspected within 30 days, and confirmed cases need to be remediated within 12 months of discovery, unless the department approves of an alternative timeline. All permittees need to use the department's illicit discharge form and upload it with the annual report. Stormwater conveyance systems include any man-made feature that conveys stormwater. This typically means pipes, ditches, swales, and concrete drainage channels. This also includes cases where the structure below the inlet does not have a sump and therefore isn't a catch basin. Those situations should also be treated as conveyance and maintained as such. This is not a new permit condition for any MS4 permittees, but what is new is that you need to describe your inspection and maintenance program in your SP3 and cover it during annual trainings of the staff who do this work. We don't specify in the permit exactly when you should do inspections and maintenance, since there's a lot of variation in conveyance systems. So please just tailor your program to best suits your system. The department has guidance available if you need it. So far, we've talked about inspecting storm drain inlets, catch basins, outfalls, and conveyance systems. These are the most common components of stormwater infrastructure, but we know that there are other features our permittees use, so we've created this catch-all condition. It applies for anything else you use to manage stormwater, things like stormwater basins, manufactured treatment devices, etc. For anything that falls in this miscellaneous category, explain what it is and define the conditions that warrant cleaning and maintenance per the approved maintenance plans. If an approved plan is not available, create one by following the department's Best Management Practice Manual or Maintenance Guidance, both available on our website. If the feature in question is not included in the department's BMP manual or guidance documents, conduct inspections at least 4 times each year and after each rainstorm exceeding 1 inch of total rainfall. If any of the infrastructure is found to be not functioning properly, maintenance and repairs must be done no longer or no later than 90 days from discovery. If you need help, contact your MS4 case manager to help or put you in touch with our stormwater engineering group to do inspections and maintenance, since there's a lot of variation in conveyance systems. So please just tailor your program to best suit your system. If you use herbicides to kill weeds, the SPC must ensure that they're being applied properly to prevent it from being washed into waterways and to causing erosion from devegetation. Avoid spraying herbicides on or near storm drain inlets and on steep slopes, and only spray in areas where it's unsafe or impossible to mow. When spraying around structures like telephone poles, keep it within a 2-foot radius. The management of excess de-icing material is not related to how you store your salt supply at the maintenance yard. We will talk about proper storage later. This condition is aimed at cleaning up the little piles that are sometimes accidentally left behind in parking lots or along roadways where the driver starts up or stops the spreader. Within a few days after the storm, please check where your spreaders have worked to clean up any piles you find. This way, the materials don't wash into nearby waterways. Grass clippings, dead leaves, and tree branches that get into the MS4 have the potential to clog the conveyance system and cause flooding. These materials also increase the level of nutrients and total suspended solids in the receiving waters, which may result in harmful algal blooms and interfere with the aquatic habitat. This permit condition is intended to ensure that your staff are handling this type of vegetative waste in a way that keeps it out of the stormwater system. For example, you may choose not to bag grass clippings. It's okay to leave them in place. If you collect or clean up the vegetative waste, explain how you keep materials out of the stormwater system. The highway agency permit also addresses tree removal and replacement through good housekeeping measures. This permit condition comes into play when you are removing healthy trees from your highway agency property. These details listed on the slide are in the permit. Depending on the size of the healthy trees that are removed, you'll replace it with 1 or more trees. Removed trees are required to be replaced within 1 year of removal. There are a series of exemptions to this permit condition. If a tree is a hazard, you may remove it without needing to replace it. Hazard trees are trees that are diseased, infested by insects, dead, or dying. It is also fine to remove trees that obstruct traffic signs, pedestrian walkways, or safe passage of vehicles. And if you have a concern about the condition of a tree and an arborist declares that it's a threat, those are fine to remove too. For an example there, maybe you have a multi-trunk tree with codominant stems and the trunks are cracking apart. The tree is at risk of falling during storms and would therefore be a hazard tree and can be removed without replacing it. Roadside erosion can cause sedimentation of receiving waters and stormwater infrastructure and can pose a public safety concern. For this reason, erosion inspections are required along all roadways, ramps, and parking lots you own or operate. You must have a roadside erosion control program in place, regardless of whether all roads within your facility are curbed. Erosion checks can be done while performing other stormwater inspections. If problems are identified, the department allows 3 months to address it, unless another time frame is authorized. The permittee must ensure that refuse containers and dumpsters that are outdoors or exposed to stormwater are managed as follows. They must always be covered with a tarp, lid, or under a permanent structure to prevent the contact of waste materials with stormwater unless actively being filled or emptied, and they must be leak-proof to prevent the discharge of leachate from the contents of the container. Temporary demolition containers or containers that hold large bulky items like furniture do not need to be leak-proof as long as they do not contain putrescible waste. Litter receptacles and refuse containers at industrial facilities authorized to discharge stormwater under a valid NJPTES permit do not fall under this permit condition. We have another moment to take a break here, and when we come back, I will hand it over to my coworker, Louisa Lubiak.
Okay, looks like we're ready to start on our next section now. Hello, my name is Louisa Lubiak, and I'm the MS4 case manager for Hudson, Hunterdon, Mercer, and Gloucester counties. Let's continue the presentation with maintenance yard requirements, followed by training requirements, and then we'll move into mapping assistance. As the SPC, you are responsible for making sure that operations are being conducted in compliance with your MS4 permit at all maintenance yards and ancillary operations, and that all good housekeeping BMPs are being followed. This applies to all permittee-owned or operated yards for outdoor storage and maintenance of vehicles, equipment, materials, and supplies. Ancillary operations include places like fleet or maintenance shops, impound yards, permanent and mobile fueling locations, salt and sand storage locations, snow disposal areas, etc. There are specific BMPs that must be implemented at each maintenance yard and ancillary operation, so let's go through them now. Site inspections. Usually, DPW or maintenance supervisors will designate someone to inspect each yard or will do this themselves. The inspector will note the conditions and document any work that is done or needs to be done to fix problems. Inventory list. Keep a list of materials and machinery that are exposed to stormwater since they are a potential source of pollutants. Container labels and storage. Label all containers so they are clean and easy to read. Protect containers from being damaged or spilled, making sure they are tightly closed when not in use. Containers stored outside should be covered and set on a spill platform, clean pallet, or in an area graded or bermed to prevent stormwater run-through. Spill kits. Keep a spill kit near any liquid transfer areas and make sure it's protected from the elements. Be sure to use dry cleaning method only, for example, kitty litter or sawdust, and sweep it up for proper disposal afterwards. Bulk liquid storage. Some of you may have above-ground tanks of fuel, used motor oil, or liquid de-icers. Be sure to surround new and existing petroleum storage tanks with a secondary containment barrier, such as a spill containment dike, to contain any drips and spillage. This is preferable over just a double-walled tank, as secondary containment areas is intended to capture spills during operations. And although not required for existing liquid de-icing and anti-icing tanks, be sure to include a secondary containment barrier when installing any new brine storage tanks. Fueling and other bulk liquid operations. During operations, be sure to use drip pans below hose and pipe connections and block any nearby storm drain inlets. Don't delay repairs or replacement of broken fueling equipment. Post signs prominently in the fueling station to include the specific language outlined in your permit. We have a sign template on our MS4 webpage. You can copy it if you'd like. Discharge of stormwater from secondary containment. When you empty the stormwater from the collection area surrounding the tank, be sure to dispose of it properly. If you have determined that it's clean, you can just open the valve and let the stormwater flow out. If it appears contaminated or if you are not sure, haul it off-site for proper disposal. If the contents inside the tank are clear, you may not be able to determine if any got mixed into the stormwater, so assume it is contaminated and haul it off-site for disposal. Vehicle and equipment maintenance. Perform these activities indoors whenever possible. If you must work outdoors, use portable tents and drip pans and work in areas far from storm drains or block any nearby storm drain inlets. Wash wastewater containment. Wastewater tanks need to be certified each year by a New Jersey licensed engineer. Underground tanks and pipes must be checked for leaks every 3 years, and the visible portion should be checked before every use. Check the capacity and pump out prior to reaching 95% tank capacity and stop use immediately if repairs are needed. Report spills immediately to the NJDEP hotline and properly dispose of pump out water. Salt and granular de-icing and anti-icing materials. Store in a permanent structure and minimize exposure to rain, snow, and stormwater runoff. Sweep after loading and unloading. Aggregate material, wood chips and finished leaf compost. Store 50 feet from water bodies, inlets, ditches, and conveyance channels. Use grading, berms, etc. No processing, no composting, chipping, grinding, screening, or size reducing. Construction and demolition waste and wood waste and yard trimmings. Store 50 feet from the MS4. Use grading, berms, etc. to minimize stormwater runoff and pollutant runoff. Store up to 6 months. No processing, no composting, chipping, grinding, screening, or size reducing. Cold patch asphalt. Store indoors or contained and covered in an impervious surface. Street sweeping and storm sewer cleanout materials storage. Keep these materials in a leak-proof container or stored on an impervious surface and covered with a waterproof material and contained to prevent materials from contaminating stormwater. Materials may not be stored longer than 6 months, or the site would need to apply for a solid waste permit. Scrap tires. Store tires in a covered container or enclosure. If a covered container or enclosure is not available, tires may be stored on an impervious surface and covered with a waterproof material. Inoperable vehicles or equipment. The designated storage area must be at least 50 feet from storm drain inlets. Use tents, covers, and drip pans under leaking vehicles and check them during monthly site inspections. And finally, wood waste. As mentioned on a previous slide, storage of wood waste, leaves, and compost is still covered under the MS4 permits. However, all composting, chipping, grinding, screening, or size-reducing activities, even if it is just once a year, are not covered under MS4 permits and require a separate industrial stormwater permit called the Wood Waste Recycling and Leaf Composting General Permit. If you are performing any of these activities at any of your sites, please reach out to your MS4 County Case Manager to determine if you're eligible for coverage under the WRC permit or if it requires an individual industrial stormwater permit. You can also visit the link on the slide for more information. As the SPC, you are responsible to make sure everyone is getting the right training at the right time. You are also responsible for making sure training records are kept to demonstrate compliance with the training requirements. Let's go through each type of training requirement. Stormwater Program Coordinator Training. Yes, this is the training we're doing right now. We developed this training to make sure that the permit is interpreted and implemented correctly and consistently throughout the state. All SPCs are required to attend this training once every permit cycle, so about every 5 years. You are welcome to attend more frequently than this if you want a refresher. and you may also invite other staff who work in your stormwater program who want to attend. During training sessions, we will be monitoring attendance and keeping records to make sure the SPC for every highway agency has been trained. If you change jobs or retire, someone at your agency needs to let us know who will replace you within 30 days. Your replacement must attend the next available live session. We plan to hold them twice each year. We suggest new SPCs watch the recorded training session posted on the MS4 website as an introduction to the requirements. For annual employee training, the SPC is responsible for conducting or coordinating annual training for their staff, including contractors, on stormwater-related job duties. The required training topics for highway agencies are listed here on the slide. New staff must receive training within 3 months of commencement of duties, then annually after that. Not everyone needs to be trained on every topic. Just make sure the people who are doing the work related to the topic are getting the appropriate training. The only topic that applies to everyone is a review of the most current SP3. You most likely don't have a training department, so a discussion of these topics should be conducted each year, led by the most knowledgeable person you have on each topic. For example, street sweeping training should probably be conducted by the DPW director. If you have a code enforcement officer, that person may cover the regulatory mechanisms. This can be done in a group setting or one-on-one, in the field, in the office, or on the computer, however you see fit. The SPC is responsible for ensuring that all required training is held and all appropriate records are kept in accordance with the permit. De-icing and anti-icing material application training. With the 2025 permit renewal, you are now required to develop a training program on the application of de-icing and anti-icing materials to make sure that all individuals, including employees, contractors, consultants, vendors, or volunteers, that apply de-icing and anti-icing material on your agency's roadways, ramps, and parking areas complete de-icing and anti-icing material application training at least once per year. The training should emphasize procedures specific to stormwater pollution prevention, as this training is about more than just the layout of routes and the operation of machinery. Make sure you document the training received by staff, including each participant's name, title, signature, dates of training, and instructors' names, and keep these records on file in your SP3. Also, make sure that external contractors, consultants, and vendors are properly trained by requiring compliance with the training detailed in your SP3 as a condition of the contract. Stormwater Management Design Reviewers. The SPC must ensure that those engineers who review and approve designs for major development projects on behalf of the highway agency attend the department's Stormwater Management Design Reviewer training, which we call SWMDR. The purpose of the training is to ensure that projects are designed in accordance with the rules, so that once a project has been constructed, there is minimal impact on stormwater quality and runoff quantity or flooding. This is a technical course which will cover the most current stormwater management rules, municipal stormwater management plans, municipal stormwater control ordinances, mitigation plans, and the department's BMP manual. This course is approximately 12 hours in length, broken up over 4 half-days, and is required every 5 years. The department has a list of past course attendees and certification dates, so you can check the status of your agency's engineers. If there is an amendment to the stormwater management rules, additional training may be required. If the department determines that training sessions are necessary, engineers must attend within 12 months of adoption of any amendments. Rule amendment training sessions will be announced by the department on the website and via email to all SPCs and to engineers who have attended previous SWMDR courses. If you have attended SWMDR and your email address changes, please let us know. All highway agencies should have already mapped and submitted their stormwater outfall pipes by December of 2020 and submitted a stormwater facilities map by January of 2023 as required by the 2020 permit. This map included permittee-owned or operated stormwater facilities, such as storm drain inlets constructed after January 1, 2020, stormwater management basins, groundwater discharge points, manufactured treatment devices, green infrastructure, and property boundaries of maintenance yards, ancillary operations, rest areas, service areas, roadways, and thoroughfares. With the 2025 permit renewal, highway agencies will now need to map all of their owned or operated stormwater infrastructure. This means mapping everything that collects, treats, or conveys stormwater, including interconnections, manholes, stormwater conveyances, pump stations, and streets, ramps, parking areas, and thoroughfares. This also includes the mapped property boundaries of rest areas, maintenance yards, and other ancillary operations. Since highway agency permittees should already have their outfall pipe and stormwater facilities mapping data, the MS4 infrastructure map requirement for this permit shouldn't be a huge lift. All permittees must submit the MS4 infrastructure map electronically to the department by January 1, 2028. Electronically does not mean a PDF sent via email. It means submitting geo-referenced shapefiles, geodatabases, AutoCAD files, or an Excel spreadsheet with geo-referenced location information. The department has a free mapping tool and can provide ArcGIS online licenses for free to any interested permittee. If the DEP mapping tool is used, data submittal will be automatic. If the department's tool is not used, files will need to be uploaded via NJDEP online. The infrastructure map must be reviewed annually or more frequently as necessary, and updated to include the location or attributes of any new or newly identified MS4 infrastructure. The map must also be posted on a dedicated stormwater webpage when it is complete. A map in PDF format will suffice, but we've seen some permittees include a link to an interactive stormwater map as well. It's important to note that we require that all permittees include certain attributes in the electronic data that is submitted. We'll go through each stormwater feature and their required attributes. Outfalls. The required attributes that must be included in your data are the type of outfall, such as piped or open channel, and the name of the receiving surface water body that the outfall is draining to, such as the Delaware River or any other river or tributary. If your outfall drains to a ditch, an infiltration basin, or groundwater, then it is not considered an MS4 outfall and should not be included in this layer. These points would be mapped as a groundwater discharge point instead. Groundwater discharge points. The required attribute that must be included in your data is the type of groundwater discharge point. The two most common types are a constructed infiltration BMP, such as an infiltration basin or a sump inlet, and an overland flow area. Interconnections. The required attributes that must be included in your data are the type of interconnection, such as a pipe or open channel, and the upstream and downstream entities. For example, if your system discharges into a neighboring municipality, then the upstream entity is you, and the downstream entity is the municipality, and vice versa if you receive stormwater discharge from another MS4 system. Storm drain inlets. The required attributes for storm drain inlets are pretty straightforward. We ask for type of inlet, such as a combination inlet, grate inlet, etc., whether there is a catch basin present, if it's labeled, and if it's been retrofitted. For catch basin, label, and retrofitting, these can just be a simple yes or no. We do not ask for any attributes regarding manholes, so all we're looking for is a point on your map. Conveyance. The required attributes that must be included in your data are the type of conveyance feature, such as pipe or ditch, and the direction of flow. This should be presented as cardinal or ordinal directions, and you can either spell out the words or include the lettered abbreviations. Please submit this as a line layer. Similar to manholes, we do not ask for any attributes regarding pump stations, so all we're looking for is a point on your map. Stormwater management measures. The required attribute that must be included in your data is the type of stormwater management method. Stormwater facilities, such as stormwater management basins, manufactured treatment devices, green infrastructure, etc., would be mapped in this layer. Also included would be any other practice, technology, process, program, or method used to control or reduce stormwater runoff and associated pollutants. Streets, ramps, parking areas, and thoroughfares. For these should be mapped as line features and do not require any associated attribute data to be collected. Property boundaries of rest areas, maintenance yards, and other ancillary operations. These should be mapped as polygon layers, and we are asking for the type of maintenance yard or ancillary operation. For example, we would want to know if it is a rest area, maintenance yard, compost facility, salt storage yard, etc. Now that we've gone through the mapping requirements, let's move on to discuss how the department has created tools to help permittees complete their mapping requirements, starting with our free mapping tool. The department previously created a geodatabase template and associated data dictionary for 7 stormwater feature classes required to be mapped in the 2020 Highway Agency permit. We realize that not every permittee operates in the same manner or has the same technological capabilities, so this geodatabase template was made available over several different collection methodologies to suit the needs of all permittees. This includes a shared editing map within ArcGIS Online that can be accessed on desktop computers, smartphones, or tablets. We also created a downloadable geodatabase template for permittees who are familiar with and currently using ArcMap or ArcPro with their own licenses. We are working to update and modify the ArcGIS Online shared editing map and the geodatabase template to account for all the new stormwater features required to be mapped for the permit renewal. As I mentioned, the first method created was a shared editing map in ArcGIS Online. This program allows users to collect points and associated information on a tablet, a smartphone, or a desktop computer. The department secured a pool of free-to-use licenses for our permittees, and they are available upon request. Additionally, if any permittees already have their own ArcGIS license and would like access to our shared editing map, we are able to invite you to edit the map, so please reach out to your county case manager to get that set up. Data that is collected will be stored in our database and can be viewed publicly and downloaded at any time. The desktop version of ArcGIS Online is a great way to electronically digitize points from the comfort of your office using an old PDF or tax map. Let's quickly walk through how to access our shared editing map in ArcGIS Online. Your first step will be to navigate to ArcGIS Online using your web browser. This is what the splash screen looks like. Next, sign in using the username and password assigned to you with your department-provided license or your own ArcGIS Online license, if you have one, and were invited to the editing group. You will then need to access the Groups tab once you have signed in to see a list of all maps that you have access to. This is where you will be able to view and then make edits to the MS4 infrastructure editing map. Within the Groups tab in the box for the NJDEP Municipal Stormwater Mapping content, click the View Details button to access the MS4 Infrastructure Editing Map. This will likely be the only group that you have access to with one of our free licenses. Once you click on the View Details button, you will be brought to this screen, where you will need to scroll down to find the list of content in the group. Once you scroll down, click on the View All Group Content button at the bottom, which will bring you to this screen where you will find the MS4 Infrastructure Editing Map. Then click the link to the MS4 Infrastructure Editing Map. The main page of this map is where you are able to see details along with other information regarding the map. To start editing, you will open the map by clicking on the Open in Map Viewer button. This is what the map looks like when you first open it. As you scroll in, you will start to see data points populate. The map is interactive, so if you see points already mapped and are interested in viewing them, you can click on a point and a box will appear detailing the point's associated attributes. I want to point out some of the important buttons here on the main map screen. You can click the magnifying glass in the lower right corner to use the search function to find your current location or to search for a specific address, and the search function will zoom you right into that location on your map. This button on the top left-hand side that looks like a stack of squares will show you the different layers that are currently on the map for viewing. Click the 4 squares on the left-hand side if you want to change the base map on the map. Typically in imagery, base map is the most helpful, especially if you are plotting points using a tax map or knowledge from previous field visits. When you are ready to start mapping data, click the Edit button on the lower right-hand side. It looks like a pencil and paper. Now I'll do a quick step-by-step walkthrough of how to plot a point. To begin, you will click the Edit button to start mapping. We'll open a menu on the right side, where you will be able to choose the correct feature class type that you are trying to map, like outfall or inlet, etc. Scroll until you find the correct stormwater facility type and then correct county. For example, if you are trying to plot an inlet within Atlantic County, you would click here. Currently, the tool has feature classes for culverts, basins, outfalls, inlets, etc., and is being updated to account for the changes to the mapping requirements in both the Tier A and public complex renewals. The icons are different for each feature class. Once you click the correct feature class, this will bring up a crosshair with the point, and you will click on the correct location on the map to plot the point. The menu on the right-hand side will change to display the different attributes you can fill out for the designated point. This will include discharge code, facility name, and others that are specific to each feature class, like type of outfall, or if a storm drain inlet is labeled. Most of these attributes will have drop-down boxes, so it is easier than entering manually. Once you have finished adding all attributes, click the blue Create button at the bottom of the menu. If something is incorrect before you click Create, you are able to make changes or discard your edits entirely by hitting the back button at the top of the menu. If you realize after you hit Create that there is an error in the point or attribute, click on the point on the map, which will highlight it in blue. This will open a box showing all of the point's associated attributes, and you can make changes by clicking the Edit button at the top. However, we don't allow users to delete points to avoid accidentally deleting other people's data. If you plotted a point in error and need to delete it, please add a comment telling us to delete it, and we can take care of that on our end. As you can see, the point has successfully been plotted where we wanted. Repeat this process as many times as necessary to map all of your stormwater facilities. As I mentioned, our shared editing map can be accessed on desktop computers and mobile devices as well. The app used for collecting points through ArcGIS Online on a mobile device is called ArcGIS Field Maps and can be accessed through both the Google Play or Apple Store. Some of you may know the previous version as Collector, but Esri has since transitioned to using this new Field Maps app. The app itself is free to download and use, and once a license is obtained from the department, you can begin mapping. This method is the best way to collect new data points out in the field. Once downloaded, the user can collect points by using the mobile device's GPS or by manually placing points using the background aerial. When a point is placed, a list of descriptive attributes will show up and can be filled out. This helps in determining things such as the type of basin or MTD and the ownership of the facility, which is important when conducting maintenance. Most fields have drop-down menus and make it easy to fill out and less time-consuming than typing out each attribute in the field. Let's do a quick walkthrough of how to log in to Field Maps to access our shared editing map. When you open the Field Maps app, you will be prompted with two sign-in options. Choose Sign In with ArcGIS Online and use the username and password assigned to you with your department-provided license or your own ArcGIS Online license, if you have one and were invited to the editing group. Once signed in, you will see a list of all maps that you have access to, which may only be the MS4 infrastructure editing map. Once you're in the tool, this is what the main interface looks like. I want to point out some of the important buttons here on the main map screen. Field Maps uses your mobile device's GPS to position you and allow you to plot data. The top of the screen will show your GPS accuracy. You will need an accuracy of at least 30 feet to plot a point, but the smaller this number gets, the better accuracy you will have when plotting points. You can zoom in or out on the map to change the GPS accuracy. This light blue arrow on top will help orient you to north if you like. You can use magnifying glass in the top right to search for a particular location, and the search function will zoom you right into that location on your map. This button up top that looks like a stack of squares will show you the different layers that are currently on the map for viewing. Click the three dots in the top right corner if you want to change the base map on the map. Typically, an imagery base map is the most helpful. You can also use this menu to see the legend, edit multiple points at a time, or share the map with others. When you are ready to start mapping, click the blue plus button in the bottom right corner. Now I'll do a quick step-by-step walkthrough of how to plot a point. To start, you will click the blue plus button in the bottom right corner to begin mapping. This will bring you to the different feature class options for the various types of stormwater infrastructure, such as basins, outfalls, or inlets. You will need to scroll until you find the correct stormwater facility type and then the correct county. You can get to the correct feature class by scrolling down, or you can search for what you are looking for by using the filter option. Once you click on the appropriate feature class, the app will bring up a circle with crosshairs. You can drag this around to plot the point on the accurate location on the base map. When you are satisfied with the location of the point, click the blue Update Point button. You will then see the corresponding point has been added to the map and the symbology matches the feature class. For example, inlets currently plot as a gray circle with an I in the middle, and outfalls plot as a beige circle with an O in the middle. You will then scroll through and fill out the appropriate attributes. Click on an attribute to start. So if we click on owner type, for example, the app will generate a drop-down menu of options for you to choose from, which makes the tool much easier and quicker to use in the field rather than having to spend the time typing each attribute out manually. When you have filled out all required attributes, click Submit in the upper right corner. Way to go! You have plotted your first point. If you need to make changes to that point after it's been plotted, you can use the pencil button in the lower left corner. However, we don't allow users to delete points to avoid accidentally deleting other people's data. If you plotted a point in error and need to delete it, please add a comment telling us to delete it, and we will take care of that on our end. To plot your next point, simply click the blue plus button again and follow the same steps. The screenshots that you just saw on the previous slide were from an Apple device, so keep in mind that the interface may vary slightly depending on the device you are working on. Some buttons may appear slightly different, but the location of the buttons and functionality will be all the same. It may also help to make sure that you keep the app updated to account for any changes that Esri makes to the app itself. For users who are already using ArcMap or ArcPro, we developed a geodatabase that can be downloaded from our website. That geodatabase can be populated on the computer and submitted back to the department to meet the mapping requirements. Again, everything here has drop-down menus, making it easy to use. While the two previous options I showed you provide automatic electronic submission, you will need to upload your geodatabase files via NJDEP online to satisfy the electronic submission requirement. In summary, NJDEP initially created a database and data dictionary for the stormwater infrastructure features required to be mapped by MS4 permittees. It is currently being updated to account for new mapping requirements in the 2023 Tier A, 2024 Public Complex, and 2025 Highway Agency permits. The data dictionary was made available over several different collection methodologies to suit the needs of all permittees. Existing data can be accessed via NJDEP Open Data. The department is willing to provide assistance in the form of in-person training and by answering any questions you may have. Please reach out if you need any assistance along the way. We have another moment to take a break here, and when we come back, I will hand it over to my coworker, Hannah Magary.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I think we can just go ahead and get started. This is the last portion of the training, so try not to get too excited. This portion, we will be going through the details of the watershed improvement plan requirements. So there are many water quality impairments and resulting TNDLs that affect waters in every town across the state. Some of these impairments can affect fish and aquatic biota, our drinking water, and the waters where many of us swim. Every summer, more lakes are found to have harmful algal blooms, or HABs, because of poor water quality. Some of these waters have no other discharges into them other than stormwater runoff. The department is requiring that stormwater permittees develop or take part in the regional development of a watershed improvement plan, or WIP, to identify water quality and quantity problems affecting their waters and determine what improvements can be made to reduce their contribution. We do recognize that some sources of pollution and flooding are beyond a permittee's jurisdiction, such as farmland or county, state, federal properties, but this exercise will help identify those sources. Before going further into the requirements of the WIP, let's look at the current water quality concerns within New Jersey. We'll first go through some definitions and examples of what HUC-14s, TMDLs, and water quality impairments are, and how these are all related to stormwater. So let's start with HUC-14s, also referred to as subwatersheds. Here you can see the municipal boundary of Hamilton and Atlantic County highlighted. Within this town, there are multiple subwatersheds depicted by the blue dotted lines. Following those blue dotted lines, you see that they almost never follow the municipal boundary, and this is very common in many municipalities. Here you can see the subwatershed for the Great Swamp Creek below Route 206 highlighted. These subwatershed lines depict smaller areas of land that drain into a larger body of water, such as a stream, river, lake, bay, or estuary. These lines are defined by the natural drainage patterns of rivers and their tributaries. These subwatersheds are technically referred to as HUC-14s, short for Hydrologic Unit Code 14. The highlighted subwatershed, Great Swamp Creek, will have a HUC-14 number as shown. It's the 14-digit code, unique for only this specific subwatershed within New Jersey. Before a TMDL is developed for a pollutant, it is likely that this pollutant and water body will be designated as impaired first. Every 2 years, New Jersey is required to submit a water quality assessment report under Section 303D of the Clean Water Act, describing the condition of waters within the state. These reports include water quality information on rivers, lakes, estuaries, coastal waters, and an analysis of the extent to which waters are meeting the current water quality standards. Waters are assessed as impaired when an applicable water quality standard is not being attained. Impaired waters will require a total maximum daily load, or a TMDL, or alternative restoration plan to reduce pollutant loadings and restore the water body. Listed here are the parameters related to stormwater that New Jersey waters are impaired for. So next up, we have TMDLs. So a TMDL, which is short for total maximum daily load, is the calculation of the maximum amount of a pollutant allowed to enter a water body so that the water body will still meet water quality standards. A TMDL determines a pollutant reduction target and allocates load reductions necessary to the sources of the pollutant. This will result in a report or a plan to address the pollutant parameter for the specific water body. Each pollutant causing a water body to be impaired or threatened is referred to as a pollutant parameter, and typically a TMDL is developed for each pollutant parameter for an affected water body. For example, if one water body is impaired or threatened by 3 pollutants, 3 TMDLs will be developed for the water body. However, in other cases, a single TMDL document may be developed to address several water body and pollutant parameter combinations. So who is responsible for developing these TMDL documents? As a general matter, each state is responsible for developing TMDLs and submitting them to the EPA for approval. EPA then reviews under the Clean Water Act and either approves or disapproves the TMDL. On the slide, you can see a full list of pollutant parameters related to stormwater that New Jersey has a developed TMDL for. You can also see that TMDLs have been developed for a majority of the subwatersheds in the state. The map here shows TMDLs and water quality impairments by subwatershed across New Jersey. Areas where there are water quality impairments, but a TMDL has not yet been developed, are represented in blue. Areas where TMDLs have been developed are represented in yellow. And the green portions of the map represent areas where both a TMDL and an impairment are present. As you can see, at least a portion of every municipality in New Jersey has an impairment, a TMDL, or more often than not, both. It is very common for one subwatershed in New Jersey to be impaired for many parameters related to stormwater. So let's go back to our example of the Great Swamp Creek below Route 206. There's a TMDL developed for total coliform to address shellfish impaired waters. And this subwatershed is also impaired for both pH and nitrate. Here I'm going to highlight some common pollutants related to stormwater in New Jersey, along with some of their sources. So wildlife, pet, and human waste contribute to bacteria pollutants such as fecal and total coliform and E. coli. So if you manage a rest stop, for example, you may want to keep an eye out for these parameters. Fertilizers, leaf litter, and other vegetative waste contribute to increasing total phosphorus, nitrate, dissolved oxygen, and pH. This is why it's important to enforce certain good housekeeping measures, such as herbicide application management and vegetative waste management. Runoff from impervious surfaces, roadside erosion, road salt, and leaf litter contribute to increases in TDS, TSS, and turbidity. Vehicles, asphalt, and building materials contribute to increases in metals, PCBs, and VOCs. And finally, deteriorating pipes can contribute to the increase of lead and copper in waterways. So, this is just an overview of the Watershed Improvement Plan requirements. Each of these phases will be submitted through the Stormwater Document Submittal Service via NJDEP online. The department recognizes that the development of the WIP is a significant undertaking, so we will be available for guidance throughout the entire process. The development of the plan is divided up into 3 phases. The first phase is due by January 1st, 2028, and the goal of the first phase is just to inventory all stormwater-related information, which will then be used to inform what is likely contributing to the water quality and quantity problems and where improvements could be implemented. That will then lead us into phase 2, which is due by January 1st, 2029. And the goal of the second phase is to evaluate the information that was gathered in phase 1 to determine what potential improvement projects can be implemented for both quality and quantity concerns. The third phase, due by December 1st, 2029, has a goal of selecting which of the potential quality and quantity improvement projects from phase 2 you will implement and on what schedule you will implement it. So let's take a deeper look into phase 1 of the WIP. Phase 1 will involve multiple staff members and will be closely related to the MS4 infrastructure map that is also required to be submitted on the same date. This step will involve adding just a few more data sets to the MS4 infrastructure map that we discussed earlier, analyzing department available data related to stormwater, and summarizing all of the required information in a narrative report. While collecting MS4 infrastructure data, permittees may want to consider collecting at the same time the additional data required by the WIP, such as the drainage areas for each outfall or groups of outfalls, the drainage areas for each interconnection, and the areas that are prone to MS4 related flooding. Next, you'll need to analyze and summarize the rest of the subwatershed information from the department's available data. This will include looking at the receiving surface water bodies for all outfalls or groups of outfalls, the water quality classifications for all the receiving water bodies. This will show you if there are any F2 non-trout, pinelands, or Category 1 streams within your subwatersheds. The TMDL and impairments by subwatersheds, which will show which pollutant is affecting which subwatersheds. The impervious areas within the permittee's subwatersheds. And optionally, permittees are encouraged to look at any additional NJIPD's regulated facilities in each subwatershed. All of this collected, summarized, and analyzed data combined will begin to illustrate the connection between the water quality and quantity issues present upstream in your subwatersheds and may highlight potential areas where improvement projects may be implemented. So, permittees are encouraged to use NJDEP open data to collect the required information for phase 1 of the WIP. So just quick as a reminder, the data that can be found through the department is receiving water bodies, water quality classifications, TMDL and impairment areas, which have multiple different layers. You will need the information from all layers to get a full picture of what TMDLs are in your subwatershed. So you'll need the shellfish impaired waters. We have lake sheds, stream sheds, and stream sheds pre-2008. You can also use NJDEP open data to get the impervious areas of your county. If you search impervious surface, a layer for each county will appear. A link to the NJDEP open data is at the top of the slide, but you can also click the links above each specific layer to go directly to that data set. This report will be created by using the mapping from phase 1 to identify potential water quality and quantity improvement projects targeting TMDLs and impairments in each subwatershed. The report will also need to include an estimate of the reduction of pollutants, a summary of feedback from public sessions, an estimate of funding needs, and a tentative implementation schedule. If you're wondering how to determine what types of projects to do to address certain parameters, the department has created a WIP project matrix that can point you in the right direction. This matrix lists various projects that can be implemented and which specific parameters it helps address. It's an Excel spreadsheet, so you can even filter for the parameters that you're aware of, and it will only show you projects that address that parameter. A link is included on the slide at the bottom, but you can also find it on our WIP webpage. The permittee needs to post the watershed assessment report on its dedicated stormwater webpage and announce a 60-day public comment period. So phase 3, the final plan will take the information presented in phase 2's report, which was public noticed, and evaluate those public comments, the cost, funding, etc. It will also identify which projects are to be implemented, including proposed timelines and expected results. This report will need to include a summary of project locations and expected load reductions. It will also include the rationale behind the chosen projects and plans to incorporate other regulatory requirements, implementation schedules, and costs. The watershed improvement plan will also need to be reviewed and updated when necessary, based on the biannual review of revisions to the impairments of the permittee's water bodies based on the department's integrated report and newly adopted TMDLs, as well as any other layer updates. So we do have a draft WIP template, including guidance material for permittees to use. This way, all WIPs are developed statewide following the same format to make it easier for the public and the department to review and compare. You could check out our WIP webpage to see what is posted. Here's just a quick overall timeline of what developing the WIP will look like. You'll complete and submit phase 1. Then you'll move on to an initial phase 2 information session, complete and submit phase 2, post that on your webpage and open up a 60-day comment period, conduct a final information session for phase 2, complete and submit phase 3, post that on your webpage, conduct a phase 3 information session, and then you'll begin implementation. You may decide now or after the phase 1 mapping and inventory has been completed that you want to combine your improvement efforts with any of the following: towns, other MS4 permittees, other types of Egyptes permittees, or even other third parties such as watershed groups. This collaboration is completely supported by the department. However, to ensure no one else speaks for you, any regional WIP collaboration would need to be endorsed in writing by each participant and specifically state which part of the HUC 14 the regional WIP will apply to and what specific projects and responsibilities will be undertaken by each. The regional WIPs will need that extra level of detail to make sure there is no misunderstanding between entities and/or the department. As a highway agency permittee, you're also required to provide other MS4 permittees that discharge to shared subwatershed sheds information if they request it, such as MS4 interconnection locations and information regarding the ownership of specific stormwater infrastructure. So that is that on the WIP section. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. If not, we're just going to close out the few remaining requirements of the permit with additional and optional measures. But I'm going to take a pause right here for a little bit just to see. Okay. We will move on then to additional and optional measures. The department will notify you if there are additional permit requirements that your facility needs to adopt. This doesn't really happen often, but such cases would result in minor modifications to the master general permit and would require the permittee to implement new or enhanced best management practices. For optional measures, you're allowed to adopt and enforce other measures to your facility's stormwater program that exceed the requirements of the permit. So, for example, you may have a regulatory mechanism requiring all dumpsters on private properties to be covered as well. Or you may have a problem that is unique to your area that relates to stormwater that you want to address. Record keeping. When DEP or the EPA staff come out for an audit or site inspection, they will be looking at your records to demonstrate compliance with each permit condition. Your job as the SPC is to have these records ready upon request. Be sure to keep copies of logs that record inspections, repairs, investigations, etc., related to permit compliance for at least 5 years. Annual report and certification. Every year between January 1st and May 1st, all permittees will report on the previous calendar year by accessing NJDEP online to submit their annual report. Highway agency permittees are also required to attach the major development project list for any major development projects that were approved within the calendar year. You must also attach all outfall inspection, stream scouring, and illicit connection forms to the annual report each year. If you're new to submitting an annual report and you would like to see previous year's submissions, just contact your MS4 County case manager and they'll provide whatever reports you need. Most of you should already be familiar with the NJDEP online, as this is the platform where you access your annual report each year. Some helpful tips that we have for NJDEP online are to create your own NJDEP online account, since you cannot finish a report that another user started. Contact your case manager if you're unable to complete the annual report. So some reports may be in progress under another user's account. Be sure to write down your username, password, and certification PIN. Accounts are managed by NJ Office of Technology. So if you forget your username or password, you will have to use the on-screen help function, and someone from NJOIT will contact you to help correct the issue. We can help you in that regard. Something that is new to NJDEP Online with these 2 recent permit renewals is that permittees are now going to use the portal to access the document submittal service to submit all required permits, documents including maps, SP3s, and WIP documents. We have some condensed information in the form of guides and an FAQ posted on the MS4 webpage if you get stuck. When you set up your account, please remember to keep your account information somewhere secure. The second document is a guide that walks you through the process of creating an NJDEP Online account and submitting the annual report that you can continually reference after this presentation. The last link is a guide to using the document submittal service. This may be especially helpful since the document submittal service is new. Use these guides as your first source for NJDEP Online issues, but if you continue to have problems, you can email your MS4 case manager for additional help. So that's it from me. Thanks for your attention today. I think there might be a couple questions in the chat, but I know we had some people answering as we were presenting. If you have additional questions, you can either say them out loud, put them in the chat. We will get to every question, but I want to make sure to note first that in order to receive a certificate of completion and to be in compliance with the SPC training portion of the permit, you must complete the exit survey. I have the QR code on the screen. You can use your phone to go to that link. It should only take a minute to complete. And once we have that, you'll get your certificate of completion. Please be mindful when filling out your name on the exit survey, because however you type it is how it's going to appear on your certification. And of course, if you have trouble accessing the exit survey, you can just email us and we'll send you a link. If any other questions come up, you can always email us at the Stormwater Manager email that's on the slide, or you can always just reach out to your county case manager as well if you have very specific questions. Thank you guys and have a good day.